In today's video, we have some updated NHL rumors on some key RFAs and UFAs still on the market looking for new contracts, including Ivan Provorov and Travis Konecny of the Philadelphia Flyers, Mikko Rantanen of the Colorado Avalanche, and Jake Gardiner, who's an unrestricted player looking for a new deal. Plus, we have some updates on some potential moves we might see out of the Penguins this year as well. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot to discuss today, so let's jump right in and discuss. And I want to start with the Philadelphia Flyers, and obviously they have a couple of key restricted free agents that are still unsigned, still trying to come to terms on new deals, and that's a very key defenseman in Ivan Provorov and a key forward in Travis Konecny. Both have had excellent starts to their NHL careers. Very productive players for the Flyers who play some key roles in some big minutes, especially in the case of Provorov on that back end. We do have some updated information from Flyers radio host Jason Martinez, who has inside sources with the teams, and claims here that Philadelphia Flyers and Travis Konecny appear to be close on a contract, and it's likely going to be a bridge deal. Either a 2 or 3 year term is the most likely outcome, somewhere around $4.5 million. Now, I don't know exactly how close it is. I can't say it's imminent at this point, but they do appear to be closing in on a deal for Konecny. So that would seem like a pretty fair contract. And of course with Provorov, though, he indicates that talks have stalled and there's really no progress and not much dialogue at all going on right now, as we've seen with the case with many of the other key RFAs around the NHL. Right now, like I said before, there's a lot of teams and players that are both looking at it saying that there's not a whole lot of incentive to kind of bend in negotiations, so they're kind of at a standstill for the most part. But unfortunately, in the case of Provorov, it looks like he's one of those players. Now, there's not as many RFA defensemen on the market as there are forwards. You also got guys like Zach Werenski, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo. Once you see one of these guys go, you'll probably see a few others kind of come lickety split right after, because they'll set the market and kind of see exactly where the rest of the dominoes will fall here. But it's hard to say if Provorov clearly doesn't appear to be one of the guys to go first and kind of set that tone. But at least the Flyers are closing in on getting one of their key players done here with Konecny. And I guess we'll see if things pick up on the front with Provorov. But I would say as each day and week goes by and we get closer to training camp, that is a very likely outcome here. Now, looking at another key RFA, Mikko Rantanen, we've seen some remarks recently from general manager Joe Sakic, indicated that he really wants Rantanen under contract before training camp opens next month. He's indicated that he really doesn't feel that the team needs to have any type of distractions once that gets underway, and that having a contract like Rantanen's looming over the team certainly would bring that to the team, and they don't want that at all. He's also acknowledged that Rantanen is going to become the team's most highest paid player. Obviously, right now, Nathan MacKinnon making a little bit over $6 million, has a very team-friendly contract. Now, of course, he's since exploded in his point production since he signed that contract. He's probably thinking and wishing he would have signed something shorter term so he'd be able to cash in here sooner on a much more lucrative contract. But I guess he'll likely have his turn in a few years' time once he has that opportunity. But for right now, Rantanen will be the team's highest paid player. Sakic wants to work hard to make sure that there's no distractions heading into training camp, and we'll see, I guess, where things go between the negotiations between Sakic and Rantanen's camp. Now let's take a look here at unrestricted free agent defenseman Jake Gardiner. Now, I thought we were getting an update because there seemed to be a story coming from Steve Simmons as he was posting about Jake Gardiner on Twitter, but unfortunately, all Jake Gardiner would discuss with Simmons was anything basically not related to contract or anything hockey related, really. He would not answer any questions at all related to his contract or negotiations or anything of that nature, which is really not a huge surprise. A lot of players try to keep that stuff private until deals are reached. And obviously with Jake Gardiner, there's been a lot of talk about where he may end up. Many feel that he has some sort of a handshake agreement with at least one team, saying that, we kind of have the parameters of a contract agreed to verbally, but the team would need to make some space in order to make it happen. I guess the longer this goes, I know there is some that still believe a return to Toronto is kind of what he's hoping for, and that very well could happen, but not to say that it couldn't. I mean, you can't rule out anything, as you just never know what trade could be announced at any time sometimes, but I do see how it would be very, very difficult and almost impossible for the Maple Leafs to create enough salary cap space to bring Jake Gardiner back into the fold. Now, I do think they would be interested. I do think they've been interested all along in retaining his services. It's just proven to be very difficult, and until the Marner situation gets resolved, it's really that much more difficult, and even more impossible and difficult than it would be today, because technically they do have some space, especially once all the LTIR kicks in for Horton and Clarkson. but it's just too hard to say. I don't really see him returning to Toronto, but we've discussed other times. There's numerous other teams where it would make good sense and be a good fit for as well as him and the team. So I guess time will tell. Jake Gardiner would not talk at all and really answer any questions, but I guess we'll see how things go and we finally get an update on where his future will take him for the coming year. Now, there's also an article in the Pittsburgh Tribune discussing the Pittsburgh Penguins and some potential moves we might see out of them during the course of this season. It mainly focuses on defenseman Justin Schultz. Of course, he's a 29-year-old top four right-shooting defenseman. That type of player certainly is in high demand. He's proven to be very protective. We've seen him have 50-point seasons. Last year, unfortunately, things were cut really short due to injury. But he was off to a really good start, unfortunately, before that happened. Now, of course, the salary cap is not real friendly to the Penguins right now. They're really tight to the cap. Now, he's one of many pending free agents going into next season as well. Of course, they have goaltender Matt Murray. They've got forwards Alex Galchenyuk and Jarrett McCann, as well as Justin Schultz. I mean, Schultz is currently making $5.5 million. If he gets himself back on track, having a good year again this year, and is on track for a 40 to 50-point season, the article basically says that they believe that more than likely he would end up being traded because he doesn't feel like the Penguins could end up affording him. But at the same time, the Penguins are a team that kind of goes for it every year. As long as they have guys like Crosby and Malkin healthy, and that team's going to be a playoff contender, and you just never know what can happen when you get in the playoffs. And I know that Jim Rutherford's a very aggressive general manager, and I can see him not wanting to trade Justin Schultz anytime throughout the year unless he feels there's a deal there that he can make in order to free up some cap flexibility as well as make the team better at the same time. But I just don't see how they can replace him all that easily. If you look at their defense core, there are some interesting options who can certainly take on bigger roles likely in the near future here, but most of them are not right-shooting defensemen. I mean, they still have Chris Letang, who can still be that top pair guy for them for right now. He seems to have bounced back pretty well after battling a lot of injuries in his career, but it just would be hard to do to have Schultz not there, especially if Letang were to get hurt again, and if Schultz wasn't there, then that right side would be incredibly weakened and really wouldn't have a whole lot of offense coming from that back end, and obviously that's proven to be very important in team success here in recent years, not only for the Penguins but around the NHL. So obviously the Penguins do have some tough choices to make. I don't see them wanting to make anything too rash with the other players. I mean, McCann and Galchenyuk have only been there a short time. I can imagine if they have a decent season, they're going to want to be retained. Although Jim Rutherford has been kind of not really clear on what the future holds for Matt Murray. He was asked about his contract and about a potential extension through this current offseason, and all he would say was that he's restricted and he wasn't worried about it, leading many to speculate that he wasn't really sure about the goaltender and with the team and longer term what that really would hold. Obviously, Murray's got a couple of Stanley Cups under his belt, but in recent years has had some inconsistent play. He's had some injuries, and I guess it's just not really clear yet if the Penguins want to stick with him longer term or not. Plus, we've seen the goalie market kind of explode this offseason with some big contracts to guys like Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. So there's other guys around the league like Matt Murray and Braden Holtby in Washington going to be needing new contracts here in the next year. Are likely happy to see those numbers go up. If they can have strong play and continue what they've done here in the past, then they should be in for a mega payday, which could prove to be very difficult in Pittsburgh's case to retain all these guys. So I guess back to the article here where it references that Schultz likely would be the odd man out. But I guess we'll see what happens. They likely won't be able to keep them all, and they very well could make some in-season trades to see what they can do here. Would not be surprising with Jim Rutherford at all. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you see the Penguins maybe making some in-season moves to address some of their pending UFAs before we get to next offseason? If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.